Good evening, everyone, and it's a pleasure to welcome all of you to our Traveling with a Disability presentation. This is our second annual Traveling with a Disability presentation. My name is Brandon Heinrich. I am one of the co-coordinators of both the Transportation Equity Working Group and the Accessibility Working Group, who are our sponsors for tonight's presentation. With me, I have my fellow co-coordinators, Gina Barbara and Marilyn Tusi, who are both also from the Accessibility Working Group and Transportation Working Group, and my other co-coordinators from Downstate New York Adapt, who really need no mention, but Yasmin Campbell, Kathleen Collins, and Chris Murphy. So I would like to thank all of you for joining us. Just a couple of housekeeping rules before we begin with the presentation this evening. Just a reminder, all of you are muted, and we ask you to please remain muted until the presentation is concluded and you have questions. If you'd like to raise your hand to ask questions, if you're on a computer, you could just click the little raise hand thing. Or if you're using JAWS, it's Alt-Y to raise your hand, and then Alt-A will mute and unmute. If you're on the Mac, it's Option Y, I believe it is, to mute and to raise your hand, and then to Option A mutes and unmutes yourself. If you're on the phone, to raise or lower your hand is *9. To unmute is *6. To mute is *6. I guess I should have really just said to mute or unmute. It's *6, but hey, there you have it. That's what happens when you have no caffeine. On that note, also just a reminder that this meeting is being recorded and streamed to Facebook and will be recorded and uploaded to YouTube at a later time for people to view. Just a final note before we get started. We have a couple of great speakers from multiple disabilities, and we're delighted to have all of them here with us tonight. So the first speaker I'd like to introduce is no stranger to this Zoom. Well, maybe this one, because this link is different. But Jessica De La Rosa is a wheelchair user, and a very extraordinaire wheelchair user at that. I don't mean to toot her horn as much as she'd like to do, but hey, what can you do? But she's going to talk to us first about her experiences traveling. And let me tell you, she gets all over the place. She goes on cruises, planes, trains, buses, you name it, she does it. So Jessica, the floor is yours.
Hi, folks. How are ya? Okay. So I like it's been said, I love to travel. Like if I could have $1 million and just travel the world, that's exactly what I would do. But I don't have that. But that doesn't mean I don't travel. So with that being said, I'm going to show you guys here my presentation. I'm going to pop. Now, this is something a program I'm not familiar with. So let's Oh, no, I got it. Okay. So, my name is Jessica, and here goes my presentation. Um, so like I said, I love to travel. I've been to Europe, Canada, Bahamas, Haiti, just a couple of places to name a few. I was also Miss Wheelchair New York 2016, and my platform was on children with disabilities, specifically in the educational system. And this is a picture of me and my beautiful Yorkie, Mayim. So this slide here, I talk about airplane travel, and it's just text. There's no pictures here. Um, so when preparing to fly, I make sure that I avoid any layovers. And actually, this year in April was my first time needing to have a layover, and I nearly cried, seriously. And thank God that all the stars aligned, that it wasn't an issue. But for the most part, you want to make sure that you avoid layovers, because doing so when you have any type of equipment, especially power wheelchairs, it puts it in danger of being damaged or lost.
Join the meeting.
Um, okay. Try to purchase your ticket on the cargo loading side of the plane, which is usually on the right side, and this will give you a clear visibility um, of your wheelchair being loaded and stowed underneath the plane. And you can take that opportunity to record the process in any case that there's an incident. I've even seen on YouTubes where they're driving the chair, being silly, thinking they're being cute when they don't realize that they have very delicate equipment in their hands. Um, and when returning, make sure that you arrange transportation an hour and a half at the soonest for your scheduled landing, especially for those of us who take paratransit, because it can be, you can get delayed. And even if there is no delay, the biggest issue is getting off the plane, especially for a power wheelchair user. It takes like 40 minutes for everybody to deboard and for them to bring your chair around. And I forgot to mention too, a lot of my perspective here is from a wheelchair user standpoint because, I'm a power chair user. So right here, I have a video of a chair being boarded onto the plane, and it has since advanced. It doesn't look as messy as it does right here, but basically what it shows is they have this I don't know what you call it, some type of like cart, usually where they put the luggage. And now in the advancements, it goes up and down to line up almost identically with the belt where all the luggage and stuff come on. And sometimes they even have a little ramp to bridge the gap because back in the days they used to do like a 5-man lift and put it on the belt and say a prayer. Um, I really just explained it. There's no real need to see it. But I can make this available to you guys if you want that. Okay. So here I talk about a seat pan sign. And for those of us who use a chair, either manual or powered, the seat pan is the spot where your cushion is on. And here I have pictured my seat pan instructions. So I put that piece of paper underneath my seat cushion on top of that seat pan plate. And here, essentially, it has the international access symbol. It says, please handle with care. It's heavy. Don't break my shit. Thank you very much. Here's my number if you need help. Again, it says a little bit more than that, but you get the gist. Brandon, I see your hand is raised. Do you want to say something?
That was my fault. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. Okay. So here on this next slide, I have pictured I travel with my partner a lot, who's also a person with a disability. And here pictured, I have our suitcase that is a large one. And inside of it, you can see some of the stuff we travel with, like our shower chair, the sling for our Hoyer lift, and some other medical equipment. And in the other photo, we have a picture of the shower chair assembled. And something important for a lot of us who travel with a lot of medical equipment, our equipment travels for free. So this suitcase, for example, is extremely heavy. I think it was like 80 pounds when it was on the scale. But that still flies for free. When you pack your wheelchair charger, a transfer board, your bowel and bladder supplies, or any other type of health medical needed equipment, that inside of your luggage also classifies as traveling for free. And your Hoyer lift, or sometimes even a secondary chair, like somebody who may travel with a manual chair as well as the power chair, that also rides for free. However, you don't just bring a suitcase, say that there's medical equipment, and you get on for free. They can indeed open it up, check it, and verify that there is said medical equipment inside. And if there isn't, you will still be responsible to pay. In this next slide here, there's a photo of my service dog's vest and one of her IDs. Now, service dogs. It's super important that you don't forget your ID. However, in a lot of airlines, that has since changed because of a lot of fraud. A lot of the times now that they require you to have some type of form filled out in advance. And that's fairly newly implemented. And it's important to know that emotional support animals are not covered under the law, like service dogs are. Emotional service animals are to be placed in a carrier during the flight. Your harness and leash must be worn at all times throughout the airport. Be sure to use the pet relief area before going through security. It is a pain in the butt if you don't do that. And your service dog is not allowed to sit in the seat, even if it's empty. Ask me why I know. Yeah. Um, my baby is smaller, so I tried cuddling, but they didn't like that. They didn't mind my feet on the seat, but her was a no-no. Anyway, so in this slide here, I have pictured our Hoyer lift. And for those of you who don't know what a Hoyer lift, that can help people who can't independently transfer from one surface to the other by this piece of fancy machinery here that you then place a sling underneath your body and you hook it onto either end of the poles and it lifts you up and sets you where the next place you need to be. We are very fortunate enough that we have access to a traveling Hoyer lift, and we're very privileged and thankful for that. So this one folds. In most cases, it has a case, but we didn't want to pay for the case. So we kind of take the risk when it goes. But the battery, the remote, we disconnect and put into our luggage so that doesn't get lost. Also pictured here is our transfer board. We don't travel light. Okay, in this slide here, just text, no photos. It says before boarding, make sure to take a clear video of your wheelchair or any other equipment that you're traveling with, and have your boarding pass, the gates, and the carpet clearly visible because that helps prove the condition of your wheelchair or said equipment before it's being stowed. Make sure you can clearly see a 360 view of your wheelchair and or equipment in the video. Believe it or not, the carpet and the gate are identifiable markers when placing a claim. Make sure that you secure your gate claim tag to a spot that it cannot easily come off. And at that point, you also want to request an aisle chair if you need that. This next slide here pictures my joystick. The first picture shows my joystick with a cover on it, and it's a clear cover. And on the underside of that clear cover, I drew a sign. So this way, if it gets wet, the plastic protects it. But it says, don't touch, don't drive. Thank you. And in the second photo, it shows my joystick uncovered. And where my joystick is, oh, excuse me, where my joystick is, I can unplug it. So I do that too to avoid enticing anybody to drive the chair, which I don't like them to do for obvious reasons. So what I tend to do is I'll take the joystick because I have easy access to that plug. Sometimes it's in the back, but I do unplug it and then I cover it up. This next slide here is just text, and it says, you will always be pre-boarded if you needed assistance and have stowed items. Take off your leg rest, your headrest, your joystick, and a cushion and bring them on board with you. And not all of these you can, right? Some people have a center mount where that is not removable. But in another slide, you'll see what you can do in that event. But anything removable, I always suggest that you bring onto the plane with you. Something that people overlook is buckling your seatbelt because sometimes if it dangles to the side, it can get caught, it can get broke, it can get in your wheel, all these things. So to avoid that, buckle the belt and never feel rushed by these people trying to board you. It is not your job to worry about them taking off. It is your job to board safely. Here I have pictured for us wheelchair users who have a center mount that doesn't come off. I'm sorry, I keep saying that's so annoying. My apologies. Anyway, so we put a yoga block at the back of the center mount. Just behind there, this is my partner's chair. He has like a plastic shield that covers the battery and everything. We put a piece of Velcro to that yoga board and it secures it in place. And then the footrest, he made sure it was all the way at its lowered position to kind of help hold and tuck it into place. So this way we could avoid any pressure. So let's say a piece of luggage were to fall and hit that center mount footrest, it has the potential at such high speeds to smash the leg rest backwards beyond their movement, so to speak. And then we take a bungee cord to secure it further. Here's just a text screen, and it says, I suggest and I say this to everybody, and in the most recent years, especially with social media, I see a lot of people doing this. Never get off of the plane unless your chair is outside of the door of the physical plane waiting for you. And that's for a huge reason. Sometimes they will lose your chair, or they left it somewhere else, or whatever, and they're going to want to push you off the plane. But again, them taking off and making the next flight is not your priority. It is their business. If they had taken care of your equipment, you would have never been put in that predicament. So never get off unless your chair is there. And I know somebody who was stuck in an aisle chair for about 4 hours because they misplaced his chair. Um, Make sure that you check your wheelchair or any other equipment for any damages before you leave the gate. Once you leave the gate of the airport, your claim is no longer valid, and you will have to pay for any of those damages. And most importantly, which I never added in this slide, but I know somebody who very recently had damage on their flight when they got to their destination, and by some weird, nah, I don't know what were they thinking, but they left their chair in that state instead of bringing it back with them. Do not ever do that. Bring it home with you no matter its condition. Next slide here is also just text. And this is some extra info. Red Cap service is provided to you to help you with getting through security, helping you push and carrying your bag. And it's typically custom to give a few bucks if you have it. An aisle chair is available during longer flights if you have bathroom needs. However, if you're not ambulatory, this can still be a challenge because for me, I'm a close transfer person. I have to get really close to something, and the aircraft is really small, so that can make it difficult. But in the past, flight attendants have actually removed that door and held up some type of drapery to give me some modesty. At least I was able to go to the toilet. I have had flights where I peed in my seat. Well, not in my physical seat, but like in a urinal or something. Yeah. So preparing for destination. This picture is me in Canada, and they have something called the Edge at the Canadian National Tower. And I am suspended, I think it was 1600, no, yeah, 1600 stories above the city of Toronto. This is a blank slide, just text. While scouting accessibility features, it can be helpful to contact the hotel staff and explain your physical needs. You can request pictures of the potential room. Something to look for when using a Hoyer lift is making sure that the hotel bed doesn't have a boxed frame, because you'll need those legs to get underneath the bed. For long stays, you can generally request to have furniture removed, such as a coffee table and extra chairs. This can give you more room to move around comfortably. Pictured here is my partner with my puppy dog and the Hoyer lift in the background with the hotel bed in view. And pictures of the room, they actually sent us, we requested photos, and it gives you a sense of the room, and it details how it would help you. This side here is just text. Secure and do research for accessible travel. Like, I can't say it enough. Research, research, research. Paratrans and New York City Paratransit Service, also known as Access-a-Ride, can be transferred to other states, which I'm all tongue-tied, which offer a form of paratransit service on a guest pass. But the only big difference here is that New York City Access-a-Ride has a 24-hour service because our subway system is 24 hours. The other states do not have this. So they may stop at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. You would have to do that research. I have used paratransit guest pass in Boston, Miami, Albany, just to name a few. All buses in the US are accessible, but service and availability differs state to state. Toronto, Canada, Washington, D.C., and Washington, D.C. have extremely accessible and relatively easy to navigate subway systems. Pictured here is my partner on a shuttle bus, and there are a couple of seats next to him from the side he's occupying. Some destinations where cruises dock offer accessible shuttles, which is what we took in this particular trip. These shuttles can sometimes be hired to transport you to different locations during your stay. In this instance, we used it from the airport to our resort. This is just text. If you don't have access to travel equipment such as a Hoyer lift, consider reaching out to your local disability organization or look for a medical supply store who can rent equipment while you're away. We all hope that nothing happens, but it doesn't hurt to research a local wheelchair repair place in the area that you're staying at, just as a safety precaution. And if you forget travel equipment or accessories, like I did, you can also try to contact local organization or medical suppliers if available overnight or 2-day shipping can save your trip. This is just text here and it's talking about cruising. So when you're preparing to sail, depending on your own personal insurance and its restrictions, you may want to consider getting traveler's insurance in case of a medical emergency. Reach out to the cruise line's accessibility service department. They can answer questions about the room. You'll need to fill out specific documentation to secure the ADA room. Also inquire about amenities on the ship. You'll want to know if the pool lift works, if any amenities need accommodation. I once RSVP'd for an escape room, and when I went, they informed me that I needed to use a manual wheelchair and a stair lift. I wasn't informed of that in advance, and I was forced to reschedule. If you're physically unable to use a manual chair, avoid ships that need to tender. Tender is when the ship is too big and it can't port at the island directly, which requires you to then get on a smaller boat that cannot accommodate a power wheelchair. Pictured here is what I rigged in my in my cruise room. So they have one of those standard drop bench things that come off the wall. I don't like those because there's not 4 legs on them. And I feel like I'm a deliciously plump Puerto Rican person, and I would be afraid that that thing would break underneath me. Okay. So I rigged it here where I found a plastic chair on the ship somewhere, and I used that to shower, and I felt more secure. Um, but you have to be mindful not to damage any furniture because you'll be responsible to pay for it. That's why I scouted out the one that looked like it could take the better water. This is just text and it says accessible excursions. One friendly ADA site that has reasonable experience with the cruises are wheelchairescapes.com. Now remember, these people don't have the same needs that we have, right? So it's just a guess. So what might be accessible to them may not be accessible to you, may not be accessible for me, but it's a nice gauge. Utilize the accessibility service department. US-owned islands tend to offer very decent accessibility, while other countries do not. But tipping goes a very long way, and local staff are eager to assist. I was carried throughout Haiti, all over the island for like $40 the whole day. It was like I was a goddess. It was great.
Jessica, I'm sorry to interrupt. We were actually over time.
No,
But
go.
I
Skip
just
it.
want to
I'll
thank you.
send this.
Yes, please do. And thank you so much because there is so much more to share on this slide. And let me tell you, she's got a wealth of knowledge. But I just want to thank you very, very much for all of that insight on this because I heard this last year and I learn new stuff every day and I hear it twice and 3 times and I'm still learning. So let me tell you, it's just how it goes. Thank you, Jessica. Our
Thank
next
you.
presenter is Ben Burrell. Ben is a travel trainer with the Federation of Organizations out here on the island, and he's going to talk to us about his experiences traveling around in different areas. Go ahead, Ben.
Okay, so you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, you can see me because it looks all black on from here. So I've been riding the buses and trains and stuff like that for about 37 years. I started back in '86 and been pretty consistently. I have had times with cars and other times not having a car, but right now I have a car. I supplement the buses a lot to go to appointments, to go, like tomorrow I'm going to work. I volunteered at a community garden over in Ronkonkoma. I'll take the 2 buses to get there to Ronkonkoma. So, and taking buses to medical appointments and so on. when I went to Suffolk Community College, which I graduated there in 2014, I would take the bus there a lot. I didn't always have a car when I did go there. It took a long time to graduate because I used to get something called psychotic episodes. I haven't really had one in maybe 2.5 years now. And I used to get like one, I'd say once a week for years. And it was very debilitating. It was, I can't even describe it. I'll tell you what, I know this, that I really would want to kill myself every time I had one. And since I had 2 serious suicide attempts in 04 and 05, where I really learned that really there's a reason why I'm alive, because I really should have died. I was in a coma for 3 weeks for the first one. The second one, I put a knife in my stomach, and if I had pulled it out, I would have been a goner. But then I had a stage 4 diagnosis with cancer, so I survived that too. So there must be some reason why I'm alive, and I think this is one of the reasons, doing stuff like this. Now I've been riding, besides the Long Island Railroad and Suffolk County buses. I burned Amtrak a little bit down to Virginia, where my mother lived down there. My brother's in Virginia Beach, so I rode that one a lot. And in fact, I'll tell you, I used to pretty much ride that, and I was scared every single time that I was getting an episode. Like up until 3 years ago, I would go down there. My mom was there for about 10 years. She moved up there 5 years ago, but I would go there and I'd be like, worrying there was one hiding behind the bush, so to speak. And but thank God I don't get them anymore. But I have about 12 things that I do that help me to stay like not anxious, to stay. I don't really have a problem with anxiety anymore, but these are 12 things that I do that kind of keep me, in a good state of mind. First of all, if it's a long trip, I recommend. I got this idea from when I went to the rehab, when you have to go for when they stretching and all that. When I broke my shoulder, my knees were a mess after the lockdown. I have arthritic knees. Is that you get a dog leash, and this is a good way to stretch. Is you put the loop around your leg and you pull on it. So when you're in a seat for a long time, that is a good way to keep limber. Because I don't know if you guys done a lot of travel, like extensively for hours. Like recently I went to Minneapolis it was a 33-hour trip, and there was stops, but so I brought that, and that kept my legs, my calf and my hamstrings, loose and so on. So that is one way to start. Another thing is reading material. I always bring different types of reading material. I like, inspirational. I like newspapers. I like humorous books. One of my favorite authors, John Irving, I recommend. He's very good. The second thing is music. Bring earbuds. I always I love music. They say music are the voices of the gods. That is very true. I like all different types of music. Classical music, jazz. I like soft rock, 70s music. I think that was the 70s rock and roll that was a renaissance to me. And I could even, if anybody's interested in a playlist, I have all kinds of music that I love. The third thing is praying. I'm a Christian, and a lot of times I'll do my devotionals on the train or on the bus if I have time. I remember even there was times when I would do a devotional on my phone, and like with my mother, and it might not be the best idea actually, because you could really annoy somebody. So that's something I don't do anymore, but I did do that. It's a way of like almost preaching in a way. The fourth thing is just enjoy the scenery. I mean, on the train and the bus, it can be really nice. I think we all know that. And then if you're working and you have some work that you could do, I mean, doing some work, you can do it on the train. You can do it if it's a big bus, you can do that. The little buses are impossible, I would say. The scat bus in particular. Eating well, I recommend, and my father always was strong about this, is that when you go on a trip, never have like sausage before you go. Never eat anything that's unhealthy. I try to eat fiber, bring some snacks. I always, like on that long trek, I brought a little cooler. But I like the healthy. I mean, I try to stay with the healthy, and try to bring some candy. I mean, that's not so bad as far as diarrhea, but just not to be descriptive, but eating well works, because I mean, none of us want to use those toilets on the buses or the trains, I think. That is one thing. Number 7, always try to look forward to your destination. That kind of, when you have a mental illness like I do, if you have that hope in mind of what you're going to be doing and something to look forward to, it gives you a good feeling. It kind of takes away from the fear, the anxiety of whatever you're going through or could be going through while on the buses and trains. I travel train people with mental health diagnoses, and the biggest thing is the fear. I mean, that is the thing. I mean, there is depression, there's the other stuff like that. There's OCD, but it's hard enough to get on like a bus where you don't know where you're going and you're learning. If you don't have like a severe mental illness, but if you can appease the fear, that's just definitely one way is and having the knowledge of knowing that you're going to get there and that the things are going to be fine. Knowing your material, knowing what stop to get off it and so on, and be aware. Awareness is very good. Number 8, I strive to appreciate the people that I meet. When you sit next to somebody, I always try to talk to them. I mean, when I went to Minneapolis, I talked to so many people. Number 9, rest if possible. Number 10, I always try to maintain a kind vibe. It just works in so many ways. I mean, with the conductors, hey, try to understand them. They're really busy and they have a lot on their minds. Hey, clashing with people with clash is never going to work. Number 11, limit conversations on the phone. I learned that with my devotionals. And maybe not the best idea in the world that I did that. The reason I did it was because I wanted to spread the word, but not everybody wants to hear that. And that's one thing that I learned. Number 12, simply be grateful for the trip. The woman that went before me, she definitely seemed very grateful. I mean, she was enjoying it. She was living it. And I forgot your name. Jessica. Yes. You just seem like you really enjoyed it. And I think that's the key to really having a nice trip is just, live in it, live in the present, live in the moment and just enjoy it, and that's going to chase away a lot of these bad feelings, I'd say, for sure. I think that's about it. How long did I go, Brandon?
You got time yet, so take your time.
Oh,
If you
I
have
do.
more,
Okay.
Yep.
How much time do I have about?
You have about 5 minutes.
Really? Okay. I mean, going back to a couple of these things, reading, if you can read and you can do that on the train, I think that I just love the idea of reading. I think reading is something that there's a lot of English majors in my family. I consider myself a writer. And then one more thing is if you want to journal, journaling is really good. If anybody you do that, you could start off just doing that. And then there was another thing that I actually did on the way to the funeral. I did a drawing. I had brought crayons and I brought colored pencils and magic markers, and I made a drawing for my Aunt Dawn. She passed away at 86, and I was going to a funeral out there. It was a very interesting trip because I left Port Jeff at 11:30 in the morning on a Sunday. I came back on 9:30 that following Thursday. I was literally in Minneapolis for 34 hours. So there was a lot of travel. But I loved every moment of it. Except for the first night I got 1 hour sleep, and that was not very fun because I didn't get the option of the bed, which I hear is not very good on Amtrak anyway. But just and another thing I guess you could say is to definitely be assertive. When you want something, tell the conductor. They're not going to please you. They're going to be helpful and they're going to give you the basics. But if you really need something, and that's one thing Jessica brought up, is when you want something, hey, ask for it. You deserve it. You paid a lot of money for this ticket. If it's Amtrak, if it's a plane, it's a cruise, freaking just, you serve yourself, squeaky wheel, right? Looking over, let's see more of these. Music is definitely key for me when you're on a long trip, definitely. Listen to tunes, just makes the trip great. I mean, if you have a good playlist, it's just key, I think. Let's see, going back. I mean, that's about it. Talking to the people that you meet. I met so many interesting people. It was just really cool. And, with those psychotic episodes going, like, it's like I'm probably a pretty bold person. I'll talk to anybody basically, you know. I don't know. Let's see. I guess, that's about it. Just try to be grateful and enjoy the moment, enjoy the trip. That's it. Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you very much for all of that insight.
Sure.
Ben is truly a magnificent person when he talks about how, how many things he's had to overcome. For sure, it's definitely. I've heard him speak to a group of people, and this man says he only took one public speaking course. Well, you could have fooled us. So that's all I'm gonna
I just
say.
want to say something is that, like and I think I said this in Marilyn's group, is that I really never thought that I would feel as good as I feel now. I mean, for years, I had that malaise and just everything. And, I took that one course. I took Intro to Communications and I read it off, and she gave me an A. Very nice woman, but like I was so scared standing up there, and I didn't have any eye contact at all. But I didn't have much now either, but my content is good, I guess.
Yes,
So,
you were very, very good. Thank you, Ben, very much.
Thank you, Ben. Thank
Our
you.
next speaker is Kelly Quinn, who will be sharing her perspectives.
And with so what she said was, my name is Kelly Quinn and my name is Courtney. I'm her daughter. I'm gonna actually be interpreting for her. This is our first time doing one of these speaking, so we're not fully prepared, nor do we have a nice presentation like Jessica did. Excuse me, sorry. We're just going to start off with some of the negative experiences that my mother's had while traveling. She is deaf, hearing impaired. So,
And
has been since birth. So some of the negative experiences that she's had, she usually takes the scat bus more than any other mode of transportation. The lateness, there's no way that anyone can get in touch with her to let her know that they're going to be this amount of time late, or if they're coming at all. Sometimes she has to sit and wonder if they're coming or not, and then sometimes they have to text out and figure out when they're coming. Overall, evening trips are difficult. There's too much turnovers with evening drivers. There's always a different face. So communication is definitely a key. Different times, how the driver's always late. I think more consistency is key, especially with a person who is hearing impaired. This way they build a relationship and have a stable bond. Sorry. They should have more priority on putting on an app, getting an app, that allows the client to see where the bus is, how far they are from their destination or pickup point. The morning trips, my mother really doesn't have a problem with. They have good drivers, and she's known many of them for majority of the years that she has been doing the scat busing. That's really all I have to say about the buses. But when on a plane, a visual aid would be good when the airline associates go over where everything is located, and when they're speaking, identifying exits, etc. And when on a train, it's actually beneficial because you can see where the stops go and all the visual on the sides. I'm sorry, that's all I have. If anyone has any questions, I can take them.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll have questions at the end of the presentation. We thank you so much for sharing your insight with us. Go ahead.
Of course. I'm sorry. It could have been definitely more better with more preparation.
No, it was
No,
perfect.
it's fine. It's fine.
We certainly do appreciate your insight, most definitely.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is no stranger again, Marilyn Tusi, who will be sharing her perspectives traveling with guide dogs, and boy, does she have stories to tell.
Thank you, Brandon.
We might have to time her.
I'm gonna clock myself, but if I go up, just tell me. Okay, so I used a cane all my life. I was blind. I am deaf in one ear. I do wear a hearing aid, but I have one good ear left. That's what I always tell people. And it's really hard when you have two disabilities, because a lot of people don't realize that I can't always hear good. So when you can't see, it's like a double whammy. You don't see where you're going and it's tough. But I'm not afraid to travel. I go places by myself. I have been on all means of transportation, everything from ferries to airplanes to a helicopter to trains, subways, line buses, paratransit buses. And, I enjoy traveling. Like Jessica said, it is a lot of fun. And if I was rich, I would travel a lot. But with the pandemic, I haven't traveled at all. But before the pandemic, I'm on my 5th guide dog now, and every one of my dogs have traveled on an airplane. They've been on a ferry. They've been on, public transportation, the line buses. They've been on the scat buses. So I'm going to share a little bit about some of the stories. When I travel on, say, Amtrak, what I would do is I contact them. I let them know that I have a disability, that I'm blind, I have a guide dog, and I will need assistance. Now, I do some crazy things. Jessica does some crazy things, but I do some even more crazier things, because I will take my suitcase, get on the Long Island Railroad. I walk to the train. Thank God that now suitcases have wheels, because many years ago they didn't. So I wouldn't be grabbing my suitcase with a guide dog, with my pocketbook, and walking the streets and getting to the Long Island Railroad, getting on the train and getting off in Penn Station. And that's something in itself, Penn Station, where I do need assistance to find Amtrak. And then they assist me on the Amtrak. They're usually waiting for me. And I get on the train. The conductors, if it's a long ride on the train, they will let me know when there's a stop, so I can get off and break my dog. Always break the dog, as Jessica said, before you get on any form of, transportation. And then I reach my destination, and either I take a paratransit or a taxi or whatever I'm doing, or if somebody's picking me up. I've been to many states. So that's the train. And then when I go on an airplane, which I love flying because it gets you there a lot quicker than any other means of transportation, I call the airlines and alert them that I am blind. I'm traveling by myself, tell them where I'm going, and that I will need assistance as soon as I arrive outside their terminal. And only once that they didn't have anybody waiting for me, and it was US Air, which no longer exists. And before US Air, it was Piedmont. It's an old airplane. So I'm like standing there with my suitcase, and sometimes I will take a scat bus to the airport, because I leave out of MacArthur here on Long Island. When I have to go to a city, which I don't like JFK, and I definitely do not like LaGuardia. I find them overwhelming for me as a person who can't see and doesn't hear good. It's very stressful in those big airports. I like the smaller ones where I feel more comfortable, and I know how to get around my airport. So it just makes it more comfortable. The smaller the airport, the more I like it. But there are times, like I said, when I want a straight run, that I have to take a plane in the city. So I break my dog before I get on, and my carry-on bag and my suitcase are full of all my dog stuff, everything from dog toys to pills to food, bags of food for her, water, anything I need for the dog, it's in those suitcase and my carry-on bag. Because just in case I lose my suitcase, I want to make sure that my dog is taken care of and I don't have to scramble or worry, how am I going to get food? My dog needs a drink, because you don't really give the dog much water before you go on a flight, especially if your flight is long. Because we don't want to have any accidents, so we want the dog to be comfortable. And you also feed the dog at least 5 or 6 hours before getting on a plane. So once you get on your plane, they put you on and you board first. Anybody with a disability boards first. They sit you down and then the other passengers come. I have to say this, when you have to use a bathroom on a plane, try not to. Don't drink yourself, because these bathrooms, number one, you and the dog will not fit in there. And it's the same thing sometimes on a train. But sometimes I have to ask people, can you just hold my dog? Because I have to use the facilities. And like I said, not being able to see, I don't like touching things because you don't know how clean it is, how dirty it is, you know. So I'll ask the stewardess, can you please look in there to make sure it's clean? Because I don't want to touch anything. To me, it's unsanitary. And you have a lot of people that are really disgusting, you know, that travel. So if you don't have to use the facilities, try not to, if it's not a long flight. Then when you reach your destination, the stewardess hands you over to somebody else at the airport, and then they take you to get your luggage, and then they wait with you. Either if somebody's picking you up or you're taking a taxi somewhere, they will hail a taxi for you, or whatever you're doing. When I was a cane user, I had gone to California by myself. Well, I also went to Alabama by myself to meet my husband. And everybody thought I was crazy. People used to say to me, you're blind and you're traveling by yourself? So I said, no, I'm not by myself. There's hundreds of people around me. When you're in an airport, there's hundreds of people. You know, when you're on a Greyhound bus, there's a lot of people on the bus. You're not by yourself. You know, and it is scary when you don't see. And if all of you closed your eyes, except for Brandon and Chris and Rashida, close your eyes and just picture going somewhere that you can't see where you're going. It's a very scary feeling, not knowing the people around you, not knowing your surroundings. But in my life, I do what I have to do. I can't, you know, let this interfere with living, because then I won't be living. I'll just sit at home like other people with disabilities do and just say, oh, I can't do this because I'm living in fear. So you can't do that. You got to get out into the world and you got to do things to the best of your ability. And when you need help, you ask for help. When I had gone to California, my son was only 3 months old. And I stopped in California because I wanted to tour it, because I was going to live in Hawaii. And I had sent the Western Union to my husband saying that I'll be arriving in Hawaii at 6 o'clock or whatever it was, 7 o'clock. It was the last plane going into Hawaii back in, you know, years ago. And my husband thought I was crazy, but he knew when he married me that I was crazy, that I do crazy things. But carrying an infant, using a cane was not easy. And we didn't have a lot of things today that people do have for their children. So it was a little hard for me, but I was afraid to go to sleep because I'm, you know, I have a 3-month-old with me. So I stayed up and I toured California. I went from LA airport to San Francisco, San Diego, San Rafael. I went to a couple of the beaches there. And in all this time, I had one taxi driver who took me all over. I don't know how lucky I was, but I really was lucky, because this man says, I can't believe it. I knew right away when I heard your voice, you're a New Yorker. And I said, yes, I am. So he says to me, I can't believe what you're doing. You know, that you're touring with an infant and you're all over Cal. I said, well, I always wanted to see Fisherman's Wharf, and I wanted to see those stairs in San Francisco. I forget the name of it now. It's Crooked Stairs or something. A lot of stairs that you walk, and I did it. And then when I was on the trolley, I got really scared because I can't see. The sensation of, I felt like the trolley was going to fall over because it's very hilly in San Francisco. And I yelled to everybody, get off the trolley, it's going to fall over. And the conductor says to me, we're not going to fall over. And I could tell immediately, you're not from here. You're from New York. Yeah, we got a bad rep, us New Yorkers. So I said, but it feels like I'm going to fall off. And he said, we're not. He said, just sit down and stop telling people to jump off because we're going to fall off. I said, okay. So now I get on a plane, which was a Mack transport because my husband was in the military. And I think now I'm finally heading to Hawaii after a couple of days in California. And I'm exhausted because I really didn't sleep much. And I was afraid with the baby. And I get on the airplane and I figured, oh, I'm going to rest now. And most of the people on the plane were all going to Vietnam. There was one stop, I think, in the Philippines, and then it was on to Vietnam. So the whole plane, except for me, and I think 2 or 3 stewardesses were all full of men. So, and most of them were drunk, by the way. So I was so exhausted that some of them were saying, can we hold the baby? Yeah, I figured, where are they going to go on an airplane with my baby? So I said, yes, please do. So I got a few hours sleep and the stewardess is trying to wake me up. I was so exhausted that I couldn't get up. And she said, if you don't get up, you're going to be heading to the Philippines and then you're going to Vietnam. And I'm thinking, no, I don't want to go to Vietnam. Neither does my son. So I get off at this airport and there was nobody to assist me. And you're outside when you get off the plane in Hawaii, you're outside. So I'm like, I don't even know where the building is. You know, I don't know where anything was. So I'm standing there and I'm thinking, oh God, I hope my husband, is here somewhere. And I could hear the airport is starting to empty because it closed at a certain time. And I didn't know where I lived because I never bothered to ask for an address or anything. I didn't know where taxis were. I didn't know anything. The security guard, after a while, he sees me standing there with the baby and I'm really nervous. And he says to me, can I help you? And I said, well, I'm waiting for my husband. And he said, oh, what branch of the military? And I said, the Army. And he says, oh, what's your husband's name? And I didn't want to tell him because I figured he's a stranger. So I finally said, well, I'm going to be here forever because the airport's closing soon. He said, do you know where you live? I go, not really. I never bothered to ask. So long story short, he says to me, tell me your husband's name. So I finally told it to him. And he says, oh, I know who your husband is. He says, I'll give him a call. And I'm thinking, oh, how would you even know a phone number? I didn't even know he had a phone. So he calls and I said, let me speak to him because I didn't really trust the guy. And he says, oh, he hung up. Meanwhile, my husband is saying, who the hell just called me and says, I got your wife and baby? Because my husband thought I was arriving in the morning when the airport opened. He didn't know that I was arriving at night. So now this guy says to me, I'm going to take you to your husband. I know where you live. Okay. Because I felt like, well, what am I going to do? So I get in his car and he's trying to give me the tour of Oahu. He goes, would you like to go for a cup of coffee? I said, no. Now I'm getting really nervous. And he goes, how about I show you where the Dole pineapple fields are? And I'm thinking, oh God, you're going to kill me and my baby and throw our bodies in the Dole pineapple fields. So with that, I said, no, I just want to go to where my husband is. If you know my husband, just take me to where he is. So he goes, I am. So finally we arrived there and my husband was like, I didn't know who that was. He woke me up, saying, I got your wife and baby and I'm bringing them to you. And the man did make me very nervous. And he came from Alabama. I won't tell you some of the things, but I will share with you because I didn't know what a lei was. They were flowers. And he says, oh, I want to give you a lei. And I said, you touch me and I'll scream. So there was a lot of funny things going on too with me back then. So anyway, I'm in Hawaii and it was a great experience for me. Coming back, I came with 1 kid. I came back with 2 babies. So it was just a lot coming back, flying with now 2 babies. It was hard enough with 1, but thank God my husband was able to take 1 and, I had 1. We might've got split up because we were on standby, the 2 of us. And we had to go to California because he was getting out of the military. So I wound up staying again in California. And again, I decided to take a taxi and tour some of California. The only problem was the man that I had for the taxi said, I'm not going any further than this spot. He said, you want, I'll drop you off at the beach. You can call the company and we'll pick you up later. So I said, okay. Well, I forgot that I wasn't familiar with the beach. So therefore I was lost and I had to ask people for help. But I'm not shy and I don't mind asking people for assistance. I've gone, like I said, I've traveled on buses. I've connected with different buses. When I lived in the city, I felt getting around was much easier than it is out here in Suffolk. It's just, like I said, it's hard when you can't see, because years ago, we didn't even have bus stops out here, no signs that said a bus stop. And I was told, just pick up your hand, you know, and a bus will stop. But years ago, they used to use a school bus. So there's hundreds of school buses on the parkway where I'm standing. And after a while, your hand gets tired of, you know, holding it up. So I would call the bus company and tell them what kind of clothes I'm wearing. You know, this is what I'm wearing. This is the color of my guide dog. This is this is that. You know, this is the street I'm going to stand at. And I can't wave down because I can't see it. And then, you know, you have to try to educate people. And I think the biggest people to educate are the people that are bus drivers, that are conductors, that work for the airlines, and they all have training, but yet still with their training, some of them just don't know to explain things to you when you can't see or tell you what your surroundings are. And I think that's the scariest feeling. And I'll share one more story that happened to me a few weeks ago with a scat bus driver. They picked me up late and the guy is heading west. And I pay attention to my surroundings. So I'm thinking, I live east, why are you going west? I never knew there was another passenger on the bus. He never said anything. So he made like 2 turns and then he stops the bus, turns it off and gets out. So I'm thinking, what is going on? He didn't say a word. I'm thinking, did he abandon me on the bus? Like, where am I? So I say it out loud, like, where the hell am I? And this man goes, oh, we're on Granny Road. And I'm like, I didn't even know there was a person on the bus, you know? So I said, well, where did the driver go? He didn't say a word. He said, I think he went to use the bathroom. So I said, you know what? If you weren't on the bus, I would either call dispatch or the police and say, I think the driver just abandoned me because he never said a word to me. I cannot see where I am. I don't know where he was heading. You know, I know we were on the bus maybe 10 minutes. You know, he's just making all these turns. And then when the driver did come back, I told him, I said, you know, I said, please be cognizant that I can't see. I didn't even know this man was on the bus. I said, you stopped the bus, you're heading west. I don't live west. I'm getting nervous, like what's going on? You stop the bus, you get out, you don't say one word. And they're supposed to, you know, let you know or call it in. You're leaving 2 passengers on the bus, but I don't know what's going on. I didn't even know there was another person. And he goes to me, well, nature calls. And when nature calls, you got to go. And you don't know what it's like to be a bus driver and sit on this bus for hours and have to go. I said, you're 100% right. I'm not a bus driver, but I am a passenger. And I do know what it's like if you have to go. I said, but I would say something. I wouldn't just get off the bus. And you could have announced to me that there's another passenger on the bus because I had no clue anybody was on with me. I said, how would it have looked if I thought I was alone? And I called dispatch or I called 911 and said the driver just abandoned the bus. I said, I didn't know, you know, and we had a nice conversation. I try to explain to him that when you have somebody who can't see, you need to tell them what's going on. So this way we have an understanding that, hey, I'm stepping out. I have to go use the facilities, or I'm heading west. There's another passenger on the bus. Or don't sit in the right seat. It's taken. Sit in the left seat, or the left seat is up, the right seat is down. But it's all about educating people about our disabilities and traveling and understanding that, you know, some of us need a little more help than other people. And it's just nice when people are helpful to you when you are traveling.
Thank you, Marilyn. Very, very, very much appreciative. It is 7:30. I want to get to our final speaker, and then we'll start asking questions. Our final speaker is the Pitbull in a Skirt, Kathleen Collins, who has a story to tell. I guarantee it. Go ahead, Kath.
Hi, everyone. Wow, we've had some really great speakers tonight. Jessica with her slides and all her information. I always learn from Jessica, and Mal and I always learn from, and Ben. That was an excellent presentation, and thank you, Kelly, so much for your presentation. It was truly wonderful. I've learned a lot about SCAT and from the perspective of a person with hearing loss, so that's very helpful. First of all, I'm a white woman with short reddish brown hair from a bottle, wink, wink. I'm wearing light pink headphones, and I'm wearing a red top that's sleeveless because I'm a quadruple amputee from birth. I'm missing my arms from above the elbow and my legs from above the knee. I get around with a wheelchair. And when I was younger, I used to use prosthetic legs and arms, and then I ditched the legs when I was in law school, and I just use the prosthetic arms sometimes when I'm outside, sometimes not. I've traveled around places. I've traveled inside the United States, outside of the United States on planes. I've traveled, usually I travel with someone, though I have twice traveled on my own. And that one time I had a business trip in Chicago, and I think it was either Chicago or Washington, I can't remember which, but I traveled there myself, and I didn't tell my parents at the time. They were alive, and I didn't let them know. At the time, I told my boyfriend. I kept in touch with him so he would know that I got there safe and that I got on the plane going back to New York fine. And he was worse than my parents, bugging me, making sure that I was all right. So I was glad I didn't tell my parents. And then another time, I was going to a conference out in San Diego, and my brother was supposed to go to me, but there was a Grateful Dead concert the day that we were supposed to leave, and he did not want to miss that concert. So I said, okay, I'll go out myself that night. We won't tell mom and dad, and I'll call you when I get out in San Diego. And I'm going to be meeting up with other people at the conference. So don't worry, they can get me to my first thing in the morning the next day. And that worked out too. So I loved Malin's story. I thought we were going to be listening to a Dateline story that was amazing about you in Hawaii. I was like, wow, this is truly a Dateline story, but I'm glad it had a happy ending.
Maybe they could put me on Dateline.
Yeah, really. Holy, you had me on the edge of my seat. Yeah, I've traveled on Amtrak. Let's see what else. I haven't traveled on a helicopter like Jessica. I'd love to hear more about that.
I was on a
Um,
helicopter.
And I know I will second, third, and fourth the theme here, prepare, 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 because even when I go locally to places, I'll call up the people that are holding the event to find out about the accessible entrance and that, because things change. First, I'll do a thing on Google Maps to see, how you get in. And then if I look at it, just recently I went to something, oh, now I can't remember the name of the place. It's a school. And I looked on Google Maps and I saw all these stairs. I was like, well, how am I going to get into this? And so then I called up the place and they told me that they had another entrance and an elevator. So that's how I got in, and I, explained to them that what day I was coming and what time and stuff. And with today with cell phones, it's great. When you get there, you can call them and say, hey, I'm here. So, well, we didn't have that many years ago. But yeah, so I don't know, like another thing, I mean, this is something good for anybody, whether you're disabled or not, is you always carry your most essential things in your carry-on, which is what I do. Like I wear little socks for my arms so they don't get a rash on them when you perspire in the prosthetics. And so those I always carry, a bunch of pairs of those in my carry-on. So, because that's not something I can easily replace someplace else. So that, my contact lenses, I carry my carry-on. Of course, any medications, I take generic Flonase because I have allergies. So I carry that on me, though now you can get Flonase over the counter, but in the old days you couldn't, so I would carry that on me. So, you know, it's just simple common sense kind of things. So I think we want to get to people's questions and, you know, go ahead and ask away.
Yes, please. If you'd like to ask questions, you can raise your hand now, and we'll call on you as we see you. Don't be shy. Again, if you want to raise your hand, just click the raise hand button, Alt-Y for users of JAWS. Marilyn, your hand is raised. She loves that raise hand button.
Yes, I do. I have a lot of questions for everybody. Jessica, your presentation was excellent. Ben, Kelly, I do have a question for you. When you fly on a plane, you know, we all hear the noises and the pressure. Do you feel the vibrations and do your ears pressure up? How do you handle that when you're on a plane, Kelly?
Well, I can feel the vibration. And so she feels the vibration when they're descending, but when they're landing, she'll feel more of a pressure in her ear. She'll feel her ear, feel her ears popping.
Oh, okay.
Good question.
Thank you. I do have another question. Kathy, my question, you know, and I've asked you this before, but I'm sure people wonder, you know, when you're traveling, like, how do you dress yourself? How do you, like, do you have a blanket on your wheelchair? You know, you're in a hotel or you're by yourself. How do you do certain things? How do you push an elevator button?
Okay, well, when I'm traveling, I would, and especially if I'm traveling alone, I use my prosthetic devices to propel my wheelchair. And also, I wear only clothes that do not require zippers or buttons. I have all kinds of clothes that are pull-on. I get mainly pull-on skirts. And well, when you wear a bra, I make sure that it's already clasped, and so I just can put it over my head and put it on. And my tops I put on the same way, you know, over the head. So I use all stuff that I can just pull on and pull off. And so I don't have to deal with any type of fasteners and that. And even with like coats and that, I try to get coats that have not zippers, but what do you call it? Snaps. And if they do, if I can't find things with snaps, what I'll do with zippers, sometimes I'll try to zip them up part of the way and then do what little kids do, is like you put your hands in and you put it over your head and put it on. So that's how I would, you know, put on things too. Let me see. What was it? Is that the total question? Oh, just one other thing. Also with my prosthetics, what they do is they take little pads when you're at airports and they rub them on the arms. And I asked them the one time, what was that for? And they said to make sure that I haven't been in touch with anything like radioactive in that. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay. I said, I hope not. And I'm like, well, you're cleaning my arms for me, which is nice. But yeah, so, and I try, you know, another thing is you try to get them to use that the wand, because they do pat you down and you feel like you're getting peeled up at times, you know?
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah,
They
so
do that with
that's,
my guide dog. They
oh, they
want
do
her.
that too?
And I've
Yeah.
had trouble in the airport in Orlando. I
Mhm.
forgot to share that story, but I actually did a system change for my agency.
Oh,
And
you'll have
it
to
was
share that
7
at some
years
point.
ago. Yeah, because I was harassed by a TSA agent and
Oh, wow.
she would not let me leave. And I kept telling her, you know, this is a guide dog and I've done everything you asked, but I will not take the leash or the collar off. I don't have to, under the law, take the harness off. The dog is allowed to wear the harness in the airport and I do not have to, you know, take it off. And, you know, she kept harassing me and I was really getting pissed. She even started to harass my girlfriend. And we did everything she said to try to keep the peace. And then finally I blew at her, you know, us New Yorkers. I said to her, you are in such trouble. You have broken the law, number one. I said, You wait till I get back to New York.
Even in another state, she makes a system
And I
change.
came back here and I contacted them. And yeah, I wrote some letter to them and they immediately contacted me. They apologized. I thought it was, well, she was harassing me. And when I asked the other people to step in, I said,
Mhm.
"Can you please get her supervisor?" They go, "She is one." I thought there were only 2 men. There were 3 men. All of them got demoted. They didn't get fired. They got demoted because I told them foil the video. And when they saw that video, they could not believe it. So let everybody know there's videos all over the airport. So if you get harassed because of your disability or, just ask them to pull the videos. But anyway, I did a system change. And not only did they get demoted, and it was actually them that told me the 3 of them were going to be retrained and they did get demoted. And they said, "We are so sorry this happened because we're expecting 3,000 blind people next week in Orlando for the NFB convention, and we don't want to have any problems." So it was very stressful that it happened, and I flew in there with no problems, but sometimes it does happen. But again, you have to stand up for your rights. You have to advocate for yourself. Sorry, Kathy, I took over.
No, that's great.
And Iman put in the chat, "That's why we love you, Marilyn."
Thank you.
So can we go on to other people? We have other
Yes, we
people's
should
questions?
probably go on to other people. We have 4 hands raised. I have Kelly's hand is raised.
Hey, this is, I
Uh-oh.
had a question for Marilyn. Marilyn, you and I spoke about this earlier. I wanted to know what that experience was like the first time that you got on a plane, the first time that you got into a car, the first time that you got onto a bus, the fear that you had to handle at that time to overcome the obstacle.
Well, I don't remember really fear of a car because I was little. My father drove a car. We lived in the city, so he always had a car. So I always grew up, traveling in a car. When I was with my mom, we always took buses because she didn't drive in the city. So it was buses and subways. It was scary as a child. I will tell you this, my parents always held my hand just in fear that, that something would happen to me. Because not being able to see, they would have to tell me like the steps in the subway, I don't know, 13 steps or count them, 1, 2, 3, and then go slow. But, people are pushing you. When you're little, it's scary because you don't know what's going on. You don't know where you're going. My parents were very good in describing things to me, telling me things, reading things to me, telling me about signs. They didn't have Braille all over. And I was a Braille user back then, which I'm not anymore. But, it just was scary growing up. And then the first time I was on a train by myself, I was crazy Marilyn again. I had a half a day of school and I told my mother that I was meeting her for lunch. My mother worked for the Transit Authority in downtown Brooklyn. And my mother said, "Don't you dare go on a subway by yourself." She said, "No, you stay home." I said, "No, I'm meeting you for lunch. Be outside J Street Borough Hall." I said, "I don't know which entrance I'm coming out of, but I will be there." I thought my mother was going to have a heart attack at work. She told all her coworkers, and this is back in the 60s. And my mother's like, "Oh my God, I'm so scared." And my mother said, "You're not going home by yourself. I don't know. God was watching over you, how you made it here alone." She said, "But you're not going home. Now you're going to sit outside here, not move until I get off of work." But I did get lunch with my mother. And it was scary. It really was, because when you're down in the subway, you hear a lot of echoes. And the scariest part is the wind from the train. And I didn't know where platforms were. They didn't have the bumps. So I was always leery, and I would always stay where the steps were. I wouldn't leave where those steps were. So once I knew the train was there, I'd ask somebody, "Is that the train going downtown Brooklyn? Is this the," some people wouldn't help you, some would. But, you learn. And I have to say it, the subway to me was the scariest experience. And it still is to this day. When I went on a plane for the first time by myself, that was scary. Never been to an airport by myself. It was just a real scary experience. and asking people, you know, we didn't have the technology. I couldn't pick up a cell phone. I couldn't call Be My Eyes. I couldn't ask, where am I? I had to rely on people and my cane and my own wit about me, you know, you could be a good cane traveler, but if you're not familiar with your surroundings, you could get lost immediately. And back in those days, I got lost a lot, especially, you know, in an airport. And trying to get people to help you was the hardest thing, because back in those days, they didn't have people to assist you like they do now. So it was a very frightening experience. And like I said, you know, you're listening to people's voices. You don't see the people, but you're listening, and it's scary, and things echo. Like I said, in a big room, you know, there's times I have to take my hearing aid out because too many voices, it echoes, and it just drives me crazy, the echo. So it's a very scary experience the first time. And you know what, Al? Every time is a scary experience. No matter how many times you do it, every time you do it, it's different. Every
Al,
train,
just getting on a scat bus is scary. Okay.
Yeah, I know. I would imagine.
yeah. Well,
Having
paratransit, I'm used to, and I've been in paratransit in other states also. Because
never knowing what Looney Tune is behind that wheel,
Exactly. Or whether
Exactly.
they're even going to strap you in correctly.
with
Oh,
the
goodness,
exception of
people.
Al and some others.
Thank you.
But he hasn't picked me up in so long I can't remember.
Yeah. Well, no, you remember me going up that steep driveway at Riverhead College and back down
Yes.
the driveway.
Oh
We
yes.
didn't bottom out. We did good.
Yes.
But I
Okay.
didn't make you come down the hill. I went up the hill and got you.
Yes. Thank you. We appreciate that.
There's a question from Courtney, and it's a very good question that she has for Marilyn, and actually it could be for anybody.
My question was, how does any visually impaired person know how to use any sort of technology?
Well, some people go to school for it. Helen Keller, Services for the Blind, they teach it. You could go, if you get an Apple product, you can go to the Apple store. They have classes there for free. They will help you and teach you. We use Siri voice over. Some things, because I like to play with things, some things I taught myself. You know, and sometimes that's the best way when you play around. Of course, sometimes because you can't see what you're doing, you screw things up, and then you got to call other people for help. But you just, you know, you try and you ask people questions, and you know, sometimes they give you the right answer. Do this, try that. You know, a year ago, I got a new iPhone, and the man that set it up for me at the Apple store forgot to turn the voice on. And I didn't know why it didn't work. And in the morning, I'm trying to get it to work. And I called Brandon, like Chris was on with me, and we couldn't figure it out. And I said, I did everything conceivable. And finally, they said, try the volume. Something so simple. Yeah, there it was, the volume.
Brandon,
Yeah.
you can add to that.
But remember, young blind, old blind.
Yes.
Yes.
He's young, blind, I'm old. Blind.
Right. It's like there's old deaf and new deaf. It's
Yes.
there's-
But you know, it's funny because we all learn it different ways. Like she's got her whole iPhone memorized to the point where her son was taking a picture on it, and I'm trying to answer her phone, and she goes, "Oh, I know how to do that." I'm like, "Good for you." She's like, "I got the whole thing labeled. I know what the heck I'm doing." Like, good for you. I'm used to using voiceover, but I think it's everybody learns technology differently, and it helps with our own travel too. And it's very important
Yeah.
to know
Because you
technology.
can ask your phone, where am I? And my phone will tell me. I
Mhm.
can ask it, where's 7-Eleven? You know, it'll tell me, you know, go to the right, that go down the street, Waverly Avenue, go over to here, you know, it does tell you where you're going. And then there's Be My Eyes. There are, you know, there's so many things today with technology to help blind people
Mhm.
that there's no reason that people can't venture out today.
There really isn't. I have other hands raised. I have Kalia.
Just quick in closing, I just wanted to say that Kelly's daughter Courtney, she worked for Alternatives of Children, so she got to work with people who were blind. You know, they went to Helen Keller, so she really appreciated the answer.
Oh, nice.
Well, thank you very much. We're
Thank
here to
you.
serve.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kalia Hazlett, and I am a travel trainer here in New York City, too. I am a Black woman in my 40s with sandy brown hair. Um, so Marilyn, like I can just tell you that I had a very similar story when I decided to pick up and move to Spain, against my parents' wishes, and didn't know my address either. Um,
Uh-oh.
oh yes, oh yes. So I had a very similar story. I just want to tell all the presenters, I feel very privileged to be on this call today because I'm learning a lot more information, even though I travel a lot as well. So my question was going to be about how much has things changed with traveling with infants? You know, Marilyn, you mentioned you had babies. I have
Yeah.
a son. I had my son in 2008, and I stopped flying with him because we started doing road trips because it was just absolutely the most horrible experience trying to travel with an infant on a plane. Um, because the sky caps have to push you, but then they don't want the baby to be on your lap, and then
Mhm.
nobody wants to hold the baby. So if anybody on the call knows, how have the protocols changed since over the past couple of years when people are traveling with infants? I definitely would like to know that. My other question is, as a blind person, when I'm travel training people on the train, um, the level of the train with the platform is always an issue. You know, I was
Mhm.
with my son the other night and I even said it to him, listen, it is not always aligned with where they identify the conductor's station. So what do you do in that situation? Do you just have a sense that there's a hump? Or are you just familiar with the station? How do you um how do you navigate that?
Well, those are tough questions. As far as it goes, in my day, because I'm old blind. Um, we didn't have the assistance that they have today. You know, your family assisted you or your friend went with you. You never went by yourself. And I was always, I don't want to always be with people. I wanted the independence. Some people are like, I'm not going anywhere unless somebody goes with me. Forget it. I'm not venturing out. And me, I was the opposite. I wanted to
Me
see
too.
what the world was by myself. I
Me too.
didn't, I wanted to be with people, but I didn't. I wanted to know that I could do it on my own, you know,
Hmm.
and people did think I was crazy. Oh, you know, something's going to happen to you and this and that. And I just said, well, then it's God's will. What happens? It's already written, you know, whatever happens to me happens to me.
Hmm.
So, traveling with an infant was really tough on me, you know, because I
Definitely.
didn't have anybody to say, here, take the baby. I need to get some sleep. I was so like tired, but I was so afraid to go to sleep because we didn't have anything. I had this little fold up stroller. I don't even remember what it was called, but you folded it up. It had, I think, 3 wheels on it. And
An umbrella stroller, yeah.
yes, that was it. Thank you. Umbrella stroller.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, that was the only thing I had for the baby. And it was a tiny baby, and I had diaper bags. We didn't have Pampers until about 6 months after my son was born. And in Hawaii, you had to wait. You didn't even get Pampers there until after the fact. So I was using cloth diapers, which that was hard,
Oh my
and
goodness.
yeah, carrying bottles, and we didn't have water bottles either back then, like today. Everybody carries a water bottle. We didn't even
Right.
have things like that in those days. So it was really tough. It was very hard. And when you don't see, you have to like trust in people, and say, could you tell me where I could get a glass of water where I could fill up, the baby bottle, is there a sink someplace or, somewhere clean, you know, where can I go to feed my baby? You're in an airport or you don't want to be around all these people, but you want a little private corner. Then the baby starts crying and you're trying to keep the baby quiet. And then, people are looking at me, oh, the blind woman's got a baby. What is she doing? Who's with her? And
Yeah.
people sometimes come over, do you want us to find, where's your husband? Where's your this? I said, oh, he's in another state.
Yeah.
Oh, well, who's with you? I said, me and my baby. That's it. You know,
Exactly.
And you know, even taking little kids, I mean, I have 4 sons. When they were little, I used to take them on the line bus. And my kids thought Patchogue was the city because I live in Suffolk. And then when they got older, they said, "You lied to us." Mommy took us to the city today. I said, "Yes, the city of Patchogue." My husband looked at me like, "Took them to the city?" You know, I said, "No, I'd never be home now, you know, if I took them into the city." But, you know, to have 4 little ones was also a challenge. You know, you're a blind mother and you got to watch your kids. And, you
It's
know,
true.
and people around you, you know, you got to make sure that they don't get hurt and things like that. So it was really hard. And, you know, I wouldn't even venture into a subway without somebody sighted to help me when my kids were little.
Okay.
I just wouldn't do that.
You know, what's interesting is that I don't think it has changed much. You know, like I said, I had my son in 2008. He will be 14 next week. And we did road trips because the traveling through the airports was just atrocious. It was just really hard. The employees were not trained and very insensitive. So that was my question. I wanted to know, how is it changed since then? Has it changed? Because now he's big. Now he carries me.
Yeah.
You
You know
know?
what? It has changed. It's gotten a lot better because like I said, now you can call and say, "I'm disabled. This is my, you know, disability. I need assistance." And somebody is usually there to assist you. So it's a lot different. I call, you know, I was one of the people that advocated for the Long Island Railroad to have people help disabled people when they either come to Jamaica and have to change, or they're going to, I think it was Atlantic Avenue and change, or
Yes.
into Penn Station. Because, you know, and everybody knows Penn Station, it's like a city within, you know, another world down there. And,
True.
it's, you know, you get lost. And one of my guide dogs was really great taking me. When I got this last guide dog, I had gone in on the Ronkonkoma line with one of the guide dog trainers, not realizing I don't live on that line. I live on the Montauk line. So when I went in there by myself with the dog, she didn't know where to, you know, guide me. I said, "Find the steps, find the steps." She had no clue because we were on a total different area. She knew it from going into Ronkonkoma because she was trained from the Guide Dog Foundation in Ronkonkoma. That's the train they went on. But I didn't live in that, and I didn't realize it until I went in by myself. I said, "Why isn't this dog finding the way out?" You know, I said, "Find the way, find the steps." And she had no clue where we were because we were in a different train track.
I'm so sorry, but I'm
It's amazing. I have several more hands up. Yasmin.
Hi, my question is for Jessica. Um, in the I when you were doing the presentation and you said that you know you have like a whole suitcase that you travel with just like your equipment. Like, so do you guys, well, first off, do you travel to the airport like with a team? Because it seems like you would need like a team to go with you guys, or do you have like the amount of suitcases you're gonna take like down to a T, so you know it's gonna be easy to, you know, go to pick up the luggage later, you know, when you get to your destination. And my other question is like, how is it? Do you have to go through, like when you're going through the security, do they just wand you, or do they make you go through the like that X-ray thing? Because I know for me, I'm legally blind, but I also have like my Dexcom 6 for like diabetes, so it tells me, you know, what my blood sugar is, but I can't go through that X-ray machine. They always have to wand me, and I'm always getting flagged at the airport because I'm like, I don't know what it is, but I can't take the device off because I don't need it to be messed up. And so I just wanted to know, like, you know, how do you guys travel? Like, you come with a cup, you know, maybe an extra person to help, like with the luggage, or how does that work for you?
I just wanted to add before I get to your question. I wanted to say that with having the kids on your lap on that chair to be escorted to the airport, that has definitely since changed. I mean, I seen a woman in April. She had like 8 kids on her lap being pushed by this guy cat. So like, I think you just got into it with somebody, who's a jerk. But I've seen improvements on that definitely. And then to answer your question, Yasmin, we we drive, so we have cars. That's one. Um, or we also do accessorize, depending if we don't want to pay for the parking at the airport, depending on how long we're gone for. So we will take accessorize. We take taxis to the airport, and tipping really goes a long way. Like I remember when we got to Puerto Rico and we came off the shuttle with all of our stuff, like you gave money and they took it to the room and it wasn't a big deal, and vice versa. A lot of the times when I travel by myself, I have a small duffel bag. I don't require a lot, me personally. But when it's me and my partner, that changes things. Um, one bag is mainly for equipment, and then we try to squeeze both of our clothes and stuff into one other bag, and then the Hoyer lift. So we end up having like two big suitcases and then the Hoyer lift, if the two of us are traveling together. And then what was the other part of that question?
About going through the like the X-ray
Yeah, no,
machine.
I am not non-ambulatory. My feet never touch the ground. Um, for those who have foot fetish. Anyway, um, so I don't go through. I get pat down all the time. And I think it's my disability is more obvious, so I just laugh less crap. But I would say to get a letter from your doctor, and that would definitely ease. Like when you go there, at one point I had medication that couldn't go through the thing at TPA, the X-ray machine, and I had a letter for it, so it didn't go through.
Thank you.
Robin?
I just want to say that I need to hop off. I just got in from work and I'm starving and I'm tired.
No,
So
thank you, Jessica, for coming. Most definitely.
good to see you all. And I want to add that I sent my presentation, so you guys, I didn't get a chance to give all of it, but they'll send it over to you guys. The one thing I am gonna ask, because I encountered a lot of issues, was people trying to steal my information and making it their own. So I'm gonna ask respectfully, and not that I'm saying anybody here will, but please don't share or edit. I mean, you can share, but don't edit and claim as your own. That's my little tidbit.
Yes, I responded to your email and said that me requesting that is going to cost you speaking next year.
You got it. And you're more than welcome to share my email. So if you guys have any questions outside of this, let me know.
Excellent. Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you. Bye.
Go ahead, Robin.
Okay. Well, my question has to do with in traveling. I have an extra long wheelchair, but I don't always have the best eyesight and things. Sometimes, if I tell a driver where I'm going, with staff, they're supposed to know where you're going, but they'll insist on taking you someplace else. Where I live at Second Court, and even the day I was coming home from the Hilton for our last workshops and stuff, they took me to second place, and the staff driver was insisting. I was trying to back out, not realizing that it wasn't. I was listening. I thought he was going a different way toward my house because he was in Ronkonkoma, but I live on Second Court, the Second Avenue, Second Street, Second Place. I'd never even heard of Second Place, as in somebody living there before. I've heard of the rest: East Second, West Second, with the courts, the avenues, and the streets. And when you don't have vision, because I know for me, with the wheelchair, it's hard. I'm back up off of the lift. And by the way, one time, it is scary because somebody was supposed to make sure that the lift, the flap was up. I was coming back and they could push back up. I backed up and ended up off the lift. Thank God my wheelchair didn't get hurt. But for somebody who doesn't have any vision, talking about being scared, if they take you off of the scat van, they give you a hard time to get back on. And if you're blind and you're trusting somebody because they've taken you to the correct address, what do you do when you're off the van, or they're trying to tell you to get off the van, and they're acting as if you don't know where you are, or you don't know, you're telling them where you're supposed to be, and they're saying, that's not what I have. Well, this is it. How do you handle it?
This is Yasmin. I can answer that because I have that problem all of the time. And I think the best thing someone told me was I always use, like when I travel somewhere different, to always use Google Maps. I put the address in, put my headphones in. That way I know like where I'm going. And I've had many, you know, arguments with Accessoride drivers because they dropped me off at the wrong location. And the friend that told me about using the Google Maps, you know, because they would do the same thing to her. And I would always say, I mean, you guys act like I don't know where I live. I do know where I live. And, you know, for safety reasons, you know, you can't just be dropping me any old way because you don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a really big safety issue there. And I know that there are drivers who have done that. But I think the best advice, like my friend ever offered to me, was use Google Maps, put the address into where I'm going. That way I know, and hit the start. And then it'll tell me, you know, where I am. And that's how I'll know if, you know, if I'm not going straight to the location. If I know like it takes about, you know, 45 minutes to get from, you know, where I live to Brooklyn, then and it's, you know, it's still taking a long time, I know that we're going somewhere else. So you know, there's little things like that, but you just have to really be careful and you know, just advocate for yourself to make sure that, you know, they are not they are not, because we do get a lot of drivers that are, you know, really not native to New York. So they, you know, may not know areas, certain areas and where to go. And, you know, they'll just be relying on that GPS. And sometimes, you know, they don't understand that the GPS could be wrong too. There's always, you know, it may not always be updated to reflect if something has changed in somebody's neighborhood. And, you know, that's like one of the biggest things I always try to tell tell the drivers that, you know, from where I live, like maybe it was open where you could just drive right in, but, you know, now that it's blocked off, the GPS doesn't reflect that. And that's why every time I go somewhere, there's always an argument. So your best bet is Google Maps.
Yasmin, if I,
Allergy in that area, or you don't have a signal. I mean, I'm like Marilyn is so blind. I'm old disabled. I mean, I don't rely as much on GPS. Even when I was in a vehicle, even if I was driving, I knew where I was when I was driving. Now that I'm dependent on somebody else to take me somewhere, that I'm not behind the wheel, it's harder because I have to trust somebody to back up onto a lift and trust that I'm not going to fall off or my leg is going to hit something because it sticks out. With my whole wheelchair being 42, 43 inches long. But there's no signal. If you don't have Google Maps or you're in an area that's unfamiliar, there's many streets in the Bronx or out here in Long Island that sound familiar. You know, you have a Maple Avenue in every town. And if they take you to the wrong one, like I said the day of the workshop, they would come trying to take me to second place. And I live in Second Court. But many times I've, you know, been scared because the way they're driving is unfamiliar. And they're insisting that you get off. And you can't argue, at least if you don't have a cell phone, you can't argue back. You only have your words. There's no technology just there if there's no other person. Because I also like to be independent. Just this week, the girl who's supposed to work here and go shopping didn't come. So I was in my wheelchair and I packed bags up on top of me. Like I said, my leg sticks out. So I had them and I went a mile and a half to BJ's, went shopping, and then I had somebody hand the bag fall over my wheelchair so I could roll home again. Which, by the way, it's a lot harder on the pothole roads to have full bags and roll home. But it can be scary if you don't have Google Maps or you don't have a cell phone. What are you doing? For someone who's old blind like Marilyn, I mean, now she has a cell phone, but does everybody just rely on technology? Nobody. There's no other way using your wits to speak to somebody or a number or a way to talk to somebody so that this doesn't happen.
Well, you know,
Or
Robin,
it
the
can
only
be-
thing you can do is talk to the driver.
Uh-huh.
You know, that you
I
have
mean,
to put your trust in the driver that they're going to bring you to the right place. And you have to verify it. You know, many drivers have dropped blind people off in the wrong places. You know, and
Exactly.
unfortunately, we can't see where we are. It's happened. And, you know, you just have to keep asking the driver, is this the correct place? Is this the right address? You know, that's all you can do if you don't have a cell phone.
Uh-huh. But there's no other alternative.
Robin, my driver the other day, to give you a story, wanted to bring me to Coram at Silo, and I said Coram is 3 buildings ago. But yet the GPS had him on 3253 Route 112 Coram somehow. And
Yeah,
I
that's
said
my
Coram
case.
was 3 buildings ago. We're in Medford.
And I guess it would also help if you know like landmarks in your area, because I'm a landmark person. I always, after I get lost the first time, I remember that landmark.
Hmm
So-
Al wanted to say something, and then I want to get to the other hands that are raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to just add to what Marilyn had said to you, Robin. I'm a scout driver, just so you know. Communication is very key, especially when you first get on the bus. The driver should be verifying where you're going, but you can certainly add to that a landmark. You could add that it's avenue, it's not street, place, court, because all of those are in my town. I live on Avenue. I'd be very specific about it because he could be making the error in his GPS and just seeing second and not choosing court or Ave or. So you got to make sure of that. If there's a landmark, that's certainly helpful. If you say, I
But
live
let's
right by
be
the IHOP.
realistic, Al. How many of those drivers are really asking, where are you going?
Well, that's
About
what I'm saying. She could communicate it.
about
she
4 out of
communicated.
10.
I
Ridiculous.
tried mom's taxi. I drove all over the island from the tip of Montauk all the way into Rock Beach, Cedarhurst. I know my roads and I know my landmarks. But
Well, give
I
him
have
a
to have
give him a
driver-
landmark.
I have to have the driver trust me that what I'm saying is accurate. Lots of drivers, lots of people think that if you have a disability, you're sitting on your brain. So that doesn't
Well-
function.
Well, Robin, let me rest it. Let me make you relax a little bit easier. I've been driving Scat for 10 years. I have never taken anybody to a wrong destination. It can happen one day, but it's because it's largely in part to my communication with everybody who gets on the bus.
Exactly.
If the driver's not going to communicate, you got to be the one that communicates.
Especially the
yeah.
one that left Marilyn sitting on the bus without calling in a step out, which is wrong.
Yeah, and I just
know
wanted to.
that was definitely say a word.
I just
I
wanted
mean,
to say
I've
to
been on-
Yasmin, just wanted to say to Yasmin that you actually taught me something that I thought was great about using the Google Maps. I think that's fantastic. I'll pass that on to people somewhere down the road. That's what I'm all about. I'm all about exchange of information. I get good information from clients, and I give them good information from me. So thank you for that.
Chris?
I'll make this kind of short, but one of the ways that technology really greatly helped me was when I was flying to Idaho in July, because we kept getting delayed, and I had to keep looking things up because the airport in Minneapolis, or Denver rather, was shut down because of the bad thunderstorms, and I never knew that until I talked to a friend later on that can happen. So I thankfully, even though I was getting assistance, I still had to use my technology, and it helped out a great deal. But getting this is the last thing I'll say, but getting back to what Marilyn was saying, we all have our different ways of learning how to use technology. I've taught it for quite a long time, and also, I self-taught myself a lot of things as well, and that's what some people can do. But technology has definitely made our lives a heck of a lot easier. It's made it a lot easier to find things, and we have a lot more apps now that does give us the ability to be able to locate things or find things or have things described to us. So that's all I really wanted to put in.
Thank you for sharing. Cherry and then Mary.
Hi, thank you, everybody. This was really informative. I'm a middle-aged white woman with gray hair, and I'm morbidly obese. And I have multiple disabilities. And that's one of the things that I had a feel for what everybody was saying, because I've been legally deaf since I had meningitis when I was 3, and I grew up oral, not signing. And people don't believe me that I'm deaf because I speak well. So when I'm trying to get help or I'm trying to ask people for things on transportation, it was very hard growing up. And I used to have to put on like a deaf accent in order to just not have to, just to have people believe me that I was deaf and that I needed help, like hearing when the stops were and things like that when I was travel. And I wasn't always this big, but I've always had problems with my legs and my knees. And I used to travel a lot when I was younger on planes and trains and everything like that. But now that I'm in a wheelchair, because of my size, my wheelchair doesn't always fit on Amtrak, for example, and it doesn't fit on like the regular buses. Like if I wanted to take a Greyhound or a Megabus, I live in New York City. So, well, on Staten Island, which is part of New York City. I don't want to hear anything from you Manhattan people. And but my issue is that now I have more visible disabilities, plus I'm heavy, and I couldn't just transfer. I don't understand how people are able to do all that traveling. Like I know she's not here right now, but when she told me that you could put all your luggage into something and you don't have to pay for that, I was like, I never heard of that anywhere. I've never seen that on any disability sites. It's the first thing I've heard of. And like, would that include medical stuff, like diapers?
It's called durable medical equipment. And under the law, you can bring that and you don't pay for it.
Right, but wouldn't necessarily include diapers?
Well,
Like
yeah, it's part of your medical equipment.
It would?
Yes.
Because I mean, I literally have to bring like packs of diapers because I can't necessarily get my
No,
size.
that's part of your medical durable equipment. So of course you're allowed to bring that.
And how do you fight with someone when they say to you, when you get to like the terminal or something and they say, no, that's not true. We're going to check, you're going to check it and you're going to have to pay for it, or we're not letting you in, or like, how do you fight that if you have to catch?
Well, first of all, they can't deny you bringing, diapers on board. That's like saying, okay, that mother has 15 boxes of Pampers. Oh, we're not letting her on because she's bringing 15 boxes of Pampers. That is illegal to do. And if you need it and it's medical durable equipment, you are allowed to bring it on. If you need them, you bring it. They can't deny you. And I don't know if you've ever tried it, but if you have a problem, you can contact the airlines. You can also let them know in advance that you are bringing on, say, 3 suitcases. They might just open it to check to make sure you're legitimate, because people do lie and say, well, I have all this medical equipment. And then they open the suitcase and it's not medical equipment. So they're trying to get a fast one. But your independent living center, if you have a problem, will help you. And we happen to know the person, Michelle, who's a director there. And
right, I go there.
Yes. So, talk to her about these things too, because she will tell you, the law. And you are allowed to bring diapers. That is part of your durable medical equipment.
So now what about the whole problem with if there's if they say like I couldn't get on an Amtrak train because they said from Penn Station that the thing wasn't wide enough. Now my wheelchair is electron, is motorized, and it fits on accessoride on the lift. It's like it's not that, it's not like super sized, but they said that it wouldn't fit. So now that means that I can't get to, because I can't walk.
Mhm.
I can transfer, but I can't walk. I can maybe take like a couple of steps, but that's about it. And my balance is
Did you
bad.
ever try to get it on the Amtrak, your wheelchair?
They told me flat out when I was talking to the disability people when I was booking my trip. So then I had to rearrange my entire thing, and it was very, I wound up canceling the trip and like figuring other things out because it was just too stressful. I don't have the finances to always, like when I would travel to Buffalo, for example, from New York City, I would take the mega bus, and I wouldn't be able to take my ride with me, my chair. I would have to rent a scooter to be at the hotel, or scooter or a wheelchair, whatever they had. But that's a lot of money, and I'm on disability.
Mhm.
So it's like it's a fixed income. And, as much as I wish I could, throw money at people and say, here, help me, I don't have cash to do, like, I don't have that, but I still
Well,
want to be able
The first
to,
thing I would do is get Michelle involved and talk to her first thing Monday. Tell her that you spoke to Marilyn. She knows who I am. And she needs to go
Er-
down there, and you have to measure, because if you can get on Accessoride, you should be able to get on Amtrak.
that's what I thought. But
I
they
don't know
told me
why they would tell
absolutely
you
not.
that doesn't make any sense.
They said that that Amtrak is old at Penn Station, and the it's not wide enough
You need the
to,
names of the people that you're
or
talking to
Yeah.
and dates and
the weight.
times.
They said the
need-
weight of the machine, of the wheelchair also, plus my weight, would be an
you need-
issue.
When people give you this
No,
kind of
that's
information, you
wrong.
have to, I'm sorry to interrupt, Mel, but you need to take all this information down. Ask them for their name, ask them for their title, write down the date, write down the time, what they said to you, what you said to them, so that you make a record, and then you can write a letter and say, hey, what gives here to the higher ups at Amtrak, so that, because, yeah, this doesn't sound
No, it
right.
doesn't sound right.
I that's what I thought. I mean, it's like when I go, I have in my purse literally my audiogram to prove I'm deaf. Just because people don't believe that I'm deaf. So I have that with me. And it's like now the wheelchair, they can see, once they see how heavy I am, they immediately presume I'm disabled. But now I'm actually disabled, and I have medical issues. So it's like, it's so overwhelming. And I'm so amazed at everybody and all your travels and adventures. And I get like the other gentleman, I get very anxious about it now, where I used to fly across the country, like you guys did. And just like my mother would be like, you can't go by yourself. You're not going to, I'm like, I'm going, and I did all that. And now I'm terrified. I'm just scared to do anything, because I'm like, well, what if it breaks? I can't just get, something easy, like, because I have to add into my size. I have to add in my medical issues as well as my other disabilities. So it just it spirals.
You
And
need to
I
break it
would
down.
have Michelle set up a meeting, and you two need to talk to Amtrak.
Okay, because
also
And you know, it might not be
able-
such a bad idea to come to our accessibility working group, which meets actually this coming Tuesday. I'm writing this information down, and what we're going to do is when you come to the meeting, we will actually see if we can maybe potentially write a letter for you, because this is,
Definitely.
it seems to be something that you know, it seems to be a recurring a situation where you're being told something that truly makes no sense to even me, and I have never really had certain issues, but I'm telling you now, I've never even thought that some of these issues can happen. So I think this is an issue, and I have your email address certainly.
Yeah,
So
but this Tuesday's election day, and I also ironically am going to my women's group with Michelle
Oh,
and
well,
Carla.
tell her.
Happened to
Just
me
talk
too.
to Michelle.
So is there another date that you guys meet?
we meet once a month. So the next meeting is in December. It's the second Tuesday of every month.
December
So that would be, I think, the 6th.
the 13th.
Yes.
And Michelle would have the information. But
Yes,
you
and Michelle
meet
is one of
where?
our co-coordinators. She will be there
Where
at
do
that.
you meet?
We meet on Zoom. And since I have your email address when you registered for this, I will send you the invitation for the Zoom, and you're welcome to join us at 10
Oh.
o'clock. It's at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, it's on
And-
Zoom.
Yes.
Oh, then I can do it on election day.
I will send you the
I
information
thought
then.
I had to travel.
No, it's
Nope, you
on
don't
Zoom.
have to travel. There is no need to worry about an Amtrak for this
No need
meeting.
to worry about that.
Well,
Don't
after
you
were
worry.
from
Yep.
Long Island.
No. Oh no, that we don't have to worry about.
Nope.
But I do want to thank you. We
Thank
do
you.
have to move on because we have one last hand up, and then we're going to end. Mary, go ahead.
Hello.
Hello.
I listened to her. I listened to you, and I'm sorry. I'm bad with names. My name is Mary. I haven't looked in the mirror and seen myself in the mirror so long I couldn't tell you what I look like other than I'm white. Anyway, what's interesting is because I would have told anybody I talked to, go on Amtrak, get yourself into the arms of the red cabs, and you will have no problem. I traveled all over the country, and they got me from end to end to where I needed to go, to actually walking over, opening the cab door, and putting me in it. Because when I sit there and I get on Amtrak, they have their handicapped seating area, which I like because then I'm the only one in it and I'm happy. But they have a section where they put the what do you call those things? Suitcases. People will put their suitcases in this area, but it's actually for wheelchairs. And it goes all the way, it goes all the way across. It's like one section of seating. So it's a huge area for them to fit. A large wheelchair would fit in it.
May I just say that I'm familiar with what you're speaking about, but they say they can't get the wheelchair into
afraid
the
of
train.
is- I'm afraid of like in the aisle getting you to that seat because they are narrow. Some of the, especially going through the cars, it is very narrow. I'm not sure about a lift though, as to where, as far as width, it's not exactly just the entrance into it. It's a matter of from that entrance to a place where where the wheelchair would go would be the problem. Because they are narrow in between some of the doors that you would go in between cars.
Right, and that's the issue.
Yeah. And but like I said, to me, that's an Amtrak. See, what issue you have is ADA is only is measured as to so big as far as they're in non-compliance. there's only so much they can do with the equipment they have. Now, you would think in today they would have there must be one modern car, and that's the one thing about a train. You can always couple another train onto it. Because I've had trains they tell you it's no more tickets, and I call them up and they're like, oh yeah, we have plenty, because they can just add a car on. If their tickets are low and they're still getting people buying tickets, they can add another train onto it. My other thing I was saying when the bus driver was saying it's communication, what I raised my hand for originally was to say I was left by a bus driver in a completely wrong place, and I had communicated to him as to where I was going to be. I had no reason to think he was going to leave me off in a completely different place from where my address was. Luckily, I had a phone. I won't travel without my phone for that reason, because they would have dropped me off and no one would have known where I was. I would have had to try and beg a phone off one of the stores. I was supposed to go to Selden, and Coram, excuse my language. I was supposed to go to Coram Country Lanes, and they dropped me off at the Smith Haven Mall. Why he did it is something I wish I could learn, because that's the only thing that drives me crazy as to why he thought it was okay to put me off in a completely different situation, different place than what his manifest told him it was.
Hey, Mary, welcome to the club on that one.
But see, that's what gets me. I want to, and it still drives me insane. I just, that's the part I don't get. I don't care about the legality. I don't care about, I just want to know, as one human being to another, why? And I'll never know that. I will never know that, but that's what drives me crazy.
Well, maybe part of your communication should be, do not leave me in the wrong place, because I know the phone number to dispatch and I'm not afraid to use it.
Exactly. Good one.
Well, yeah, I mean, and they have to know that. I mean, they have to know they have to know you're gonna, it's just amazing sometimes. I've had people tell me, you shouldn't be out here. I had a conductor tell me, if you can't see, why in the world are you on this train? You should not be on this train. And that was
my response would have been,
my always problem is, where would you like me to be?
Exactly. My response actually would have been, if you had any brain, you wouldn't be a conductor.
And she did this. I had a sighted person going into Penn Station. She looks at me and she said, that was the rudest thing I've ever heard in my life. She said, I will help you get out of Penn Station. She got lost.
At least she offered to help.
Well, yeah, I had the second. She goes, and how in the world do they expect you to do this? This is
unbelievable.
Insane, she said.
Kathy's hand is raised, and then we are going to end for sure.
That's good. I'm done.
Yeah, no, I just was thinking, I know like with the MTA and Accessify, we have, there's monthly meetings that you can go in person or online. And I mean, if this is a systemic issue that you have concerning them dropping you off at the wrong place, whoever's operating that, you should be bringing that up to them as a group and showing on this date, on this date, on this date, on this date, so-and-so was put at this place when they were supposed to go to that place.
That's what we have Maryland for, and what we go to the legislature for.
Right, but I mean, it should not just be Maryland's job. It's a concerted effort of everybody, the customers.
Oh, I did call SCAT. I did call them. They did end up giving me a free ride for my experience, but I'm like, I want to know why. That's all I wanted. I didn't need compensation. I wanted to know, if I don't know why, to my eyes, if I don't know why, how can I stop it from happening again? Usually that's why I talk to the drivers all the while I'm in there talking to them, so they know me. They're more likely to help you if they know you personally, even for that hour that they're with you, they know you personally. You're a face and a human being, and they're more likely to help you if you talk to them and, you know, show you're a person too.
Well, I want to thank
I got
everyone
the
for
link.
coming to the presentation tonight. We had a truly great turnout, and I was very happy with how everything went. I want to thank our speakers. We'll be sending out some reading material and some spam in the next couple of days, probably Monday or so. And if you are interested in learning more about Downstate New York Adapt, you can go to www.dnyadapt.org and become a member there. There are no membership dues ever. We are a dues-free organization, so feel free to get involved. Have a wonderful evening, everybody, and hopefully we will see you all next year.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you for the invite.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody.